When I was 2 years old, my parents took myself, my brothers, and I, and put us in the car, drove us downtown, stood us on the steps of the city courthouse, and said, "Now stay right here. We're gonna go get you guys some ice cream." And that was 56 years, 2 months, and 23 minutes ago, and I'm still waiting.
Imagine yourself as a child, with your parents and siblings one minute, the next, intentionally abandoned, waiting for parents you will never see again. Marsialle Arbuckle was 2 years old when he and his 2 young brothers were cruelly cast off into the world, but mercifully saved by the foster care system. This is his story. The ins and outs of foster care, this week on My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Michael Hunter. There's been a lot written about the foster care system, not all of it favorable. Foster care was without a doubt established with the noblest intentions, to serve the fundamental needs of children. Much of the time it works, but not always. Understanding the ins and outs of the system combined with a healthy dose of luck can mean the difference between surviving and thriving. Children transition into the foster care system for a wide variety of reasons, none of them ideal. These kids come from dissolved or abusive homes. Some are from families unwilling or unable to care for them. Many are victims of violence, and all are under court protection. Naturally, this kind of trauma can lead to any number of mental health issues, commonly depression, anxiety, and drug addiction. It takes the whole village of foster care, the foster parents, an army of social workers, clinicians, and others to heal the wounds of these children so they can transition out of the foster care system as healthy, productive young adults.
So foster care was created to have a formal structure to take care of kids when a birth family or the primary caregivers, the legal primary caregivers for a child or children can't be safely taken care of in that home. And ideally, the outcome is that the caregivers get the services they need, they get the help they need, they get the resources in place to correct those problems and then be able to take the children home, and the family has a better structure, a greater family system to take care of those children in, and thus removing the risk of that happening again. That's the ideal.
Today, my colleague Elizabeth Atkins speaks with Marsialle Arbuckle, an exemplary product of the foster care system. Mr. Arbuckle has gone on to advocate for children in foster care through his own mentoring organization. They're helping kids successfully transition out of the foster care system.
Mr. Arbuckle, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I read your book, I heard your story, and let me just start by saying I am so impressed by how you've transformed a cruel and tragic situation into something that's created a very purposeful and meaningful life.
Thank
Congratulations.
you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So let's start very early in your life and tell us how you became part of the foster care system.
Well, when I was 2 years old, my biological parents, mother and father, who were both heroin addicts, gathered myself and my 2 brothers together one afternoon and put us in the car, took us downtown, stood us on the steps of the city courthouse and said, "We want you to stay right here. We're going to go get you guys something to eat." And they left and never returned.
And how old were your brothers?
My brothers were 3 and 4 years old, so we were just 3 little boys that they left standing there.
So you're standing on the courthouse steps. Did anyone see you?
It was amazing. My memory, as I said, is not as vivid, but my oldest brother, who was 4 at the time, he remembers it as if it was yesterday. And he remembers how people walked past us and just kind of looked at us and probably noticed us, but they weren't noticing 3 little boys abandoned by themselves. They were noticing these 3 little ragged children standing there, and why were they there in the middle of the courthouse steps? And we stood there until late evening as people were getting off work and passing us by. And one lady in particular walked past us, and she kind of recognized our situation. She said, "Come on, you guys, come and get in the car with us and go with us." And my middle brother, who was 3 years old at the time, really protested because he was remembering that Mommy told us to stay here, and if they come back, they won't be able to find us if we leave. But we were placed in the car, and the lady happened to be a social worker, and she took us to Child Protective Services. We were, and in those days, they only had a limited number of people that were trained and licensed to be foster parents. So they literally put us in a car and drove us to a home and took us out and took us up to the door, and people greeted us, and they said, "Hey, these 3 kids need a home." And the people said, "Well, we only have one spare bedroom with twin beds, so we'll take the 2 youngest ones." So not only did we suffer the tragedy of being abandoned, but also the horror of being separated from our sibling on the same day.
When did you realize your parents were not coming back?
At age 2, I'll be honest to say that I was able to bond rather quickly. They were loving, kind people, and I was just a little bitty thing. And I remember one of the things I remember is that my foster mom, Rosie Yerby, would always say, "Come and sit beside me in the big chair." And it was just enough room for me to slide in and sit with her. And so that helped me to bond. But my brother, it was totally the opposite for him, because remember, he was the one that said, "We can't leave, Mommy's coming back to get us." So he really clung to that promise for many, many years, and it caused him some issues, but he finally got over it. But it was more challenging for him to bond with the family than it was for me, because I was a little bit younger and he was clinging to that memory. But over a couple of 2 or 3 years, it was just like we were their children. They had no other children in the home, so we didn't face any issues of being treated differently than their biological children. And it was just like being at home. You know, it was great. It was a good situation for us.
Mm-hmm. So, as you know now, many stories of children in foster care don't end well, but you were very fortunate because you were placed with a wonderful, loving family.
Absolutely.
Were you aware of how fortunate you were at the time?
I think I started becoming aware when I was in elementary school, because I started noticing little differences in other people that I knew that were in foster care, and it actually made me very pleased and recognize how fortunate that I was in that our foster parents treated us like we were their own children. And in fact, I knew that our foster mother would make sacrifices, you know, like she would look at a new pair of shoes for herself and say, "Nah, I'm not going to do that this month. I'll get the boys some tennis shoes or sneakers." So I knew that they made sacrifices for us. I was fortunate enough to be able to take piano lessons, and, you know, that costed $5 or $6 a week, and that was a big deal in those days. And in the summers, we went to summer camp with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, and when they would take trips, it would cost $2 or $3 for you to be a part of the trip that they were going to take, or the field trip. And we always got our $2 or $3 to be able to go participate and be a part of it. So I could tell how fortunate we were versus other people that were in foster care, that we were a little better off.
Marsialle Arbuckle's story is one of the triumphs of the foster care system. But these happy endings require a combination of incredibly hard work and luck. Unfortunately, not all foster care kids are so lucky. Many of them develop serious setbacks in their social, emotional, and mental development and well-being due to the tough challenge of finding the right foster family, and often their own family history. When we return, Elizabeth explores what happens when kids turn 18 and transition out of the foster care system.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Mental Health Services has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan. Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery. Team Mental Health Services, because we care and you can.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it,
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got, or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
When you see mental health problems for children in foster care is when they have had multiple placements and been bumped around. That starts to wear on their resiliency, because if you can imagine that every time a child moves, they have to adjust to new rules, a new house, a new bedroom, new toys, new siblings, a new school, a new neighborhood, a new doctor sometimes, new teachers, new parents, just everything is new. Sometimes though, because kids are removed from a very stressful environment into what it should be a much less stressful environment, you will see once children adjust to foster care, and if they stay in the same placement and it's a good placement, you will see huge growth in development. Once they come into foster care, you'll see tremendous improvements in mental health presentation, in attachments. That's what you should see.
Welcome back to My Healthy Mind. Today we're talking about the ins and outs of foster care with Marsialle Arbuckle. He shares his journey into and out of the system to a life of amazing accomplishment.
Marsialle, you've told us about your experience in your foster care family. As you were approaching the age of 18, at that time, that was the age of maturity for the foster care system.
Right.
So were you prepared to transition out of that system?
I was scared. I was afraid. My choices were have a high-paying full-time job that would sustain my living, go to the military, and the Vietnam conflict was just starting to come to a close, or go to college. And fortunately for me, I got an academic scholarship to be a Hoosier Scholar, which meant that I had a full ride at Indiana University. Technically speaking, if I didn't go to college, I had no place to go. Now, I knew I had a great relationship with my foster parents, and they weren't the type of individuals that were going to put me out on the street. But at the same time, I knew that I needed to move on and to start embarking upon my own life, and the choice I made was to go to college.
So let's talk about the factors that enabled you to make the transition from your foster care family in high school into college. Were they saying you need to go to school? Was there a guidance counselor saying, here's how to apply and get the money? How did that work?
Well, I knew that I wanted to go to college, and my foster parents really motivated that. They believed that that was the way you could make it in life, and they looked at what was going on around them in the world, their own personal experiences, and said, hey, if you don't have a college degree, you're not going to have a very good life. And so that was a big motivator. Also, a couple of the young men that went to my church, and it was a small church, they went away to college and they came home, at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, and it was like they were heroes. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that too, so that was a motivating factor. The minister at our church, Reverend Henry Milton Williamson, was also a great motivator in wanting us to go to college and helping us with filling out applications and things of that nature.
Can you tell us what the reality is for most 18-year-olds who transition out of the system and the consequences that they face?
A person who does not have the academic capacity to qualify for scholarships and so forth, if you didn't know that there are resources and funds available for you because you were in foster care, then you have no direction, no place to go. And most foster kids would leave a home at age 18 with their personal belongings in a garbage bag, and they're out in the world just trying to make it.
What typically happens?
Well, about 65% of the boys would transition out of foster care into prison. And 45% of the young women transition into homelessness, prostitution, substance abuse. But it's very tragic. A lot of the young men have substance abuse issues, and these are some of the homeless people that you're passing on the streets as you drive down the street.
So are there adult services that could have helped them that they didn't get access to?
I'm sure there are, but until about 4 years ago, when you cut the cord at age 18, the cord was cut. About 4 years ago, the Jim and Annie Casey Foundation filed a class action lawsuit against the state of Michigan, along with several other states, utilizing the statistics that I cited, that so many youth in foster care, as they transitioned out, were ending up homeless, they were not getting greater education. Those statistics allowed the Jim and Annie Casey Foundation to win their lawsuit, and several things happened. Number one, the EVT, or educational voucher, that enables any young person that was in the foster care system to get a full scholarship for college. The second thing it did was, at age 18, an individual can now sign up and become a part of what is called Young Voluntary Foster Care. And the Young Voluntary Foster Care system provides benefits, a stipend, and health benefits and other benefits for the young people, as long as they are working full-time or working 20 hours a week part-time and going to school part-time or going to school full-time.
So it sounds like there are some resources being presented now to reverse those terrible statistics.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of work and dedicated people that are behind that. And I'll, I guess, give a shout out to all of the social workers and caseworkers and people that are part of the Department of Health and Human Services, Child Services Division. And those are the wonderful people that work with youth in foster care and try and provide them support.
We'll have more when we come back about the ins and outs of foster care and how to triumph through the system. Please stay tuned. Welcome to My Healthy Mind,
A show that dares to talk about mental health matters that touch nearly every family. Each week you'll meet guests who share their stories, hear from local experts, and learn about resources that may help.
And so I was in a committee meeting at the House of Representatives when I realized that my daughter had autism.
We need to take the stigma away from mental health issues.
No topics about mental health and wellness are off limits on our show.
Let's talk about it on My Healthy Mind.
Aging out of the foster care system without resources, proper resources, has been a huge issue. And over the last few years, there have been a lot of things that have been done through policy, through legislation, through different things to try to help this problem. It is not a solved problem, but a lot of improvements have been made. So it used to be when they turned 18, that was it, they were done, didn't matter. Now they have something called Young Adult Voluntary Foster Care, which is an agreement between the young adult and the Department of Health and Human Services that they will cooperate with certain things about being in foster care, and they, as a result, will receive a stipend and support.
We're back on My Healthy Mind, looking into the foster care system, why kids get into it in the first place, what it's like to be a part of it, and how to successfully transition out of it. Elizabeth Atkins continues.
So Marsialle, you really beat the odds. Let's talk about how you're working now to help other young people who've been in foster care beat the odds.
Thank you. I do feel very blessed and very fortunate, And so in 2010, we launched an organization called the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development. And our purpose is to work with youth that are in and transitioning out of the foster care system, to provide them with substance abuse prevention, life skills development, and workforce development opportunities. And we've been very fortunate that since 2010, each year we've run our summer youth employment program, where we work with approximately 25 to 30 young people that are in foster care or transitioning out, and we provide them with a summer job. But this is the most unique summer job that they will ever have, and I always tell them that this will probably be the only time in life that somebody will pay you to become a better you. Because during that period of time, we take them through a substance abuse prevention program called Keeping It Real, which was developed by Arizona State University, specifically designed for youth that live in an urban environment and that are minorities.
So you have been able to achieve many of these things due to lucky breaks.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of the things as we started getting involved in this thing was we determined that, or learned that youth that are transitioning out of foster care also often find themselves in housing shortage situations because they have a little money, but they can't afford a regular apartment, and therefore what do? And so we were fortunate enough to be gifted a house from Liberty Bank here in Detroit, a dilapidated property for the cost of $1. And so we went to work trying to find funding to fix up the house. And we stumbled upon, through a tip by the Michigan Nonprofit Association, of a program called the Drops of Good campaign that was being run by Maxwell House Coffee. The 3 nonprofits that got the highest number of votes online would receive a $50,000 extreme makeover on location of their choice. And to make a long story short, we were able to win the $50,000 extreme makeover.
Wow.
And that was just like a stroke of everything happening all together at just the right time, and it all came together.
So that sounds very affirming, that you made the right choice and that you're a very faithful person. They say God's way of being anonymous is being serendipitous. And even meeting the person in charge of this whole building contest was a chance meeting in an elevator.
Yes, exactly.
And your life is full of little stories like that. It's amazing. So it's almost like there's this energy following you to keep you on this purpose to help others. So you've written a book about your life. Tell us about your book.
The book is called I Have a Story to Tell, and it's obviously a nonfiction autobiographical work that chronicles the story of my life. And I think that in the book I try and reflect that if you I try and share little nuggets like, everybody's waiting for a lucky break, but to me, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I learned that at an early age, so I spent my entire life preparing myself. One of the things that I always reflect on is that, I am somebody. And I learned that because I was raised in the civil rights era. Every Saturday morning we would get up and turn on the television. There would be Reverend Jackson saying, I am somebody. I might be poor, I might be black, I might be from the ghetto, but I am somebody. And then my foster mother would constantly say, hey, I don't care what you make out of yourself in life, but I just want you to grow up to be somebody, make something of yourself. And that was so inspiring until I got to college. And in my philosophy class, I asked myself the question, well, who is this guy somebody? Everybody keeps telling me to be somebody. I keep saying that I am somebody. Well, who the heck is somebody? And I learned who somebody was when I was about 30 years old and my foster mother, Rosie, passed away. I learned that somebody is the person that does what anybody could do, but nobody is doing it because everybody knows that somebody is going to do it, and I am somebody. You see, when I went home at her death, somebody had to go to the mortuary and pick out her shroud and pick out her coffin. I am somebody. Somebody had to call the minister and say, will you come and preach a eulogy for my mother? I am somebody. Somebody had to call the hairdresser and say, hey, will you do my mama's hair and her nails? I am somebody. Somebody had to go to the printer and say, hey, will you print up these programs for the funeral service? I am somebody. Somebody is the person that does what anybody could do, but nobody's doing it because everybody knows that somebody's gonna do it, and I am somebody. Somebody's gonna help youth in foster care. I am somebody. Thank you.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Mental Health Services has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan. Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery. Team Mental Health Services, because we care and you can.
Elizabeth, I could listen to Mr. Arbuckle all day. When you consider that he was abandoned at 2 years old, yet he turned out to be this incredible, optimistic, dynamic force that he is today, that's inspiring.
It's really wonderful. It makes you feel like there's real hope for kids who need foster care. But there's still a lot of work to be done to ensure that these kids transition out of the foster care system successfully so they can go on to live happy, healthy, productive lives. To help you in your quest for mental wellness, we've put information and resources on our website, myhealthymind.com. Please take a look. Visiting myhealthymind.com could be an excellent first step toward understanding the ins and outs of foster care.
And we'd like to hear from you about the topics you'd like us to discuss. We mean the tough topics that are so important to talk about openly so that we can remove the barriers on the path to well-being. So reach out to us on our website at myhealthymind.com, on Twitter at myhealthymind, and on Facebook.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. And now, My Healthy Minute. Let's talk about it.
My Healthy Minute, covering breaking mental health news, legislation, discoveries, and resources.
Well, there's been many changes in the healthcare and health insurance laws over the past several years, and some of the popular provisions, such as the guarantee issue, which allows people to buy insurance without being underwritten, and tax credits. If you buy them through healthcare.gov, you may be eligible for tax credits. But some of the things that people might not know about are the less popular provisions of the law that would include mental health parity. Mental health parity basically requires insurance carriers to treat mental health as they do with physical health. So for example, if you go to see a doctor for a cold or a sneeze, you might pay a small copay. That'd be the same if you went in to see someone for depression or anxiety. And if you went into the hospital for something more serious, like a heart attack or cancer, you'd pay money towards a deductible. And that would be the same in mental health. If you went in for something more involved and you needed inpatient mental health, you'd also pay something that would go to your deductible. But it's really important for people to know all their benefits, and they should talk to a doctor, a navigator, or an insurance agent to find out more.